History 2323 Lecture 2 focuses on the West, and we're looking specifically at Native Americans in this area during three phases: the separation phase, the concentration phase, and the decimation phase. The separation phase actually happens in what would be considered History 2313 under Andrew Jackson's presidency, when basically all of the East Coast tribes are forced to move after that Indian Removal Act of 1830 is passed and signed into law, move to the Great Plains, and where they were basically promised that land for forever. However, post-Civil War especially, you start, because Indians are there, you start having clashes between the U.S. military and Native American tribes. Starts in 1864, which is still the last a year before the Civil War is over, but will continue all the way up through 1890, where you'll have a series of battles, confrontations, and quote-unquote wars. The most famous incident probably would be Little Bighorn in Montana in 1876 between Custer and four other Indian chiefs. The Buffalo Soldiers were also active in these U.S. Army units, segregated at the time, and Henry O. Flipper was one of them. He was the first African American to graduate from West Point. 20th century, where you'll start to see in the mid-20th century, and especially at the end and even up to the present day now in the 21st century, the U.S. government has been trying to right some of the wrongs that have been done in the past, such as returning land to the tribes that originally owned them. They pay tributes in various ways to Native American heritage and culture, and build memorials and monuments to some of their great achievements. Third phase, decimation, will be near, it'll start probably the last, the buffalo they'll start killing the buffalo en masse in the probably 1870s. And that will go into the 1880s and then 90s. But the Native Americans had, as tribes, followed buffalo around in herds, and they would lead them sometimes to a cliff, which is called the cliff jump. So it's called the pedestrian bison huts that they were walking. And then the cliff jump would be the animals going over a cliff, and they would then use them, because in the Great Plains especially, every part of the buffalo was used for something within Indian society. The two main herds they became massive. Indians didn't do anything to raise buffalo; they just were wild buffalo they were after. But horses will change their culture from being a walking and cliff jump to now hunting buffalo on horseback. However, the U.S. Army thought that the Native Americans would be, and their resistance to Western expansion would be weakened if these buffalo were slaughtered in mass. And so that's what happens. And you'll have various groups kill off buffalo for various reasons. And, even buffalo herds were so massive back then that they could even, if they plowed through an area where a train was going, they could knock a train off its tracks. So everyone had an interest in getting the buffalo numbers down, and they were reduced greatly. And then a second policy, which was done in good intentions, which a lot of government programs are done with good intentions, was to help Native American children transition to more of a quote-unquote civilized Western lifestyle. And so they set up these schools throughout the country. The one that I chose is most famous is the Carlisle School in Pennsylvania under Richard Henry Pratt, who the idea was to kill the Indian part, and save the man. And this was done, like I said, throughout the country, and in some cases, the Native American children got through it and weren't adversely affected. Others had a much more difficult experience. So, but with those two things, the buffalo destruction and the undermining of Native American culture, you begin to see there isn't a lot of options left but to basically go to a reservation and just survive there. Indians will stay on the back burner now for about the next 40 years or so until we get to the New Deal with FDR. This concludes Lecture 2.